Take 3 Gen Xers, give them a topic about music, movies, pop culture, or whatever, and how it relates to them growing up in the 70s and 80s as part of Generation X. Add one person from another generation to see if there's any common ground, and you've got Solve for Gen X. Starting now.
Cold as hell.
Cold as hell?
That's from, did you ever see that movie, American Movie?
Probably not. Oh, yeah. I love that.
And there was like an old
movie.
actor in it who would always be like, I'm cold as hell.
The kind of very, he was the...
Very quotable.
And kind of pretentious
yes.
actor. He was an actor.
Solve for Gen X.
It was the age of parachute pants.
Skinny ties, neon headbands.
We rode our bikes, closed helmet free.
A nicotine from a vending machine.
Decades, pastimes, memories, and masters. Solve for Gen X. Solve for Gen X. Solve for Gen X. Solve for Gen X.
I am Nate Starkey, Gen X 1971.
I'm Ashley Ward, Gen X 1972.
And I am Matt Vogel, Generation X 1970. Welcome to Solve for Gen X. This is part 2 of our topic. We are discussing that blank that I really loved, but kept secret from everyone until now. Last episode I went, Nate went, and now, Ashley, take it away.
Yeah, I struggled with this topic because what I kept butting up against was the notion, kind of similar to Nate, where I feel like I would sort of say what I liked and like maybe I would shrink away from it, you know, or feel bad about it because people are like, what? But more what happened was I would pretend to like things I didn't like. Mm-hmm. So, like, when I was in middle school, it became really popular to watch horror movies. Horror movies became, and I think that was probably, like, kind of a bit of a heyday of horror movies.
That was the Freddy Krueger.
It was, like, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th.
Fangoria magazine.
That was, like, something with, like, a pumpkin head or something. It was like a little monster that lived in a box or something. Anyway, it was like when we would go to the movies, people always wanted to see horror movies. And one, mostly I couldn't get in because they would think I was too young because I looked so young. And like I remember one time a bunch of us were going to see Child's Play, a movie I had zero desire to see because I don't like scary things. To this day, I do not like them. And so I had to buy a ticket to Feds, which was the Mary Gross, Rebecca De Mornay movie, which I'm just like, what 12-year-old is like, I'd like a ticket to Feds, please.
One for Feds.
And then like went into Child's Play with my Feds ticket.
What if we put Mary Gross and Rebecca De Mornay together? Mm-hmm. They both work.
I'm listening.
I still have not seen that movie, even though I bought a ticket. And went and saw Child's Play and had a horrible time. Any party I would go to, there'd be like middle school parties or sleepovers. They'd always be playing horror movies. I remember from my birthday in 7th grade, so like my 12th or 13th birthday, I had my mom rent Christine, the horror movie, and I was just like,
just because you were pretending,
because it was like everyone wanted to watch it, and like everyone wanted to watch scary movies, and I just hated it. But I was like I made myself read Stephen King because my friend Lois was reading Stephen King, and I did enjoy some of the Stephen King, even though it did scare the crap out of me. But like Pet Sematary, I went and saw that in high school. I was like, this is horrible. I hate this. I hate it. Then it lives in your head forever. That's the thing. It's like I remember hearing the phrase, you can't unring the bell. Mm-hmm. And recognizing like, yes, that is why I don't like these horror movies, because I can't unsee what has been seen. I cannot unhear what has been heard. Like,
that's true. Yes.
And it was very like upsetting. That being said, I did think about it a little bit more, and I realized one of the things, and this is a bit provocative, but because I was raised in a very Christian home and in a very Christian environment, one of the things that, and I think this was like ubiquitous. I feel like you talk to anyone from anywhere and they're like, yes, that was a thing, were nudie magazines in the woods. You would find a stash of nudie magazines in the woods or at these dilapidated tennis courts that were near where I grew up. And you would find this stash and you would look at them. And if you were a girl, your reaction was like, ooh, this is gross. Ugh, I hate it. But then you would go back all the time to look at it because secretly I liked it. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And I mean, they were, by and large, only like Penthouse and that type of magazine. It wasn't like dudes. So I remember it being very confusing, but I would be like, this is very interesting to me. And I would think about it a lot. I remember when I was very young, we had a babysitter, and it was me and my sister and my mom's best friend's kids who were our age, but they were boys. They were staying at our house. And we had a babysitter. And at the time, there was a PG version of Saturday Night Fever. So when Saturday Night Fever was released, there was a rated R version and there was a PG version. And so we had been begging to watch. We loved Grease. We loved John Travolta. And our babysitter, my mom, it was like on HBO or whatever. It was on some paid channel. And the babysitter accidentally played the R version.
Uh-oh.
Like just, I think it was probably confusing which one you were picking.
Who knows?
Or which one was on. It was like whatever one was on. We're like, it's on tonight. Saturday Night Fever, it's on tonight. And it was the R version. And I remember like knowing I'm not supposed to see this. And I was young. I mean, I was probably like maybe 8 at the most. And being like, I know I'm not supposed to see this, but I am liking this. This is very provocative. And but like I would say.
Would you in your mind literally use the word provocative?
No, gosh, I wasn't that smart. I would be like, like this is naughty. This is
I'm not supposed to see this.
This is not what good people like or think is good. Same with the nudie magazines. Like you should like the appropriate response to this is bad. This is shameful and like how awful that this exists in the world. And so that is what I would say, but that's not what I thought.
It's not how you felt.
Because you're naughty girl.
So with those nudie magazines, just going back to that for a second, that you found that everybody knows are in the woods. Are they just
Did you have nudie magazines?
I found a stack of nudie magazines my mom owns this big house in downtown Denver, and I was doing yard work, and I found a stack of nudie magazines like on a little perch over the fence thing. I guess obviously it's hidden away. Yeah. I did find a stack of nudie magazines, not in the woods because I didn't live in the woods, but in somebody's little hiding place or something.
Yeah, this just reminded me that I had never, because I was like, how absurd that there would just be nudie magazines lying around. So I would be in the bathroom at my aunt's house, and there was like a round ceramic container filled with magazines, and if you kind of flipped through them far enough, you would come across the Playboy that I don't know if it was my uncle's, I guess, I don't know, but I do remember being in the bathroom and going like, this is not a thing I'm supposed to be looking at, but it's right here. So
my parents definitely had Playboy magazines in the house.
They did.
Yeah,
they didn't have
My friend's older brother.
They weren't being shy about it. Or
Wow.
anything.
My friend's older brother had them in the house too, and I think he even had like penthouses in the house. And I mean, I will say there would be friends who were equally like, "Ooh, let's look at this," but you would sort of be like, "Oh no, we don't want to look at that," and then you'd be like, "No." But yeah, like the woods thing, I feel like I hear people talk about it, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It must just have been a thing everywhere. I remember there were two distinct places where they were. One were these woods back behind my house, and the other was there was like these dilapidated. I lived in kind of a crappy neighborhood, and there were these dilapidated tennis courts that like always had spray paint on them, and like the nets were all torn, and it was like. No adults really played down there. Kids would go down there, and there'd always be like bottles. People would go down there and drink and stuff. And there was a stash down there too.
Now, don't you think that these are somebody's private masturbating spot?
Yeah,
my guess is it's some teen would. Here's my two thoughts of what it is.
Couldn't keep it in the house.
It's some teen who like got them. They were like, I'm not keeping this at my house. We'll keep it here. And I mean, they would get ruined. Like you would find them and they would be like, had gotten soaked by rain. And yeah, like they probably, I think what it was it would be like probably a collective group's shared magazines. And they would just like kind of leave them somewhere or look at them and then be like, oh, we'll leave them here. We'll come get them again. And they'd be like, oh, it rained. Oh, they're ruined. Oh,
but when
weather.
when you found them, did you find them with somebody, or was it just
Yes.
you? You found them with somebody, and was it like,
Yeah.
we're going to keep this a secret, but let's look at them? Or you were kind of like,
Yeah,
ew,
we
this is
didn't-
gross. Let's look at them anyway.
This sounds like a Stephen King novel, by the way.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, it would be like a secret. I mean, I think like the times that I don't know that I ever purely stumbled upon them. I think it was always someone in the neighborhood was like,
There was
oh, we got to
nothing
show
pure.
you something we found.
There's nothing pure about you in those magazines.
you should see what we found. And I was like, oh my gosh.
What is it?
Well, that is awful. Let me see. Nobody was buying these for the articles.
Right.
Like, there were no articles. But yeah, and I think it just was like I was a very good girl in a lot of ways, but I think I did have like a provocative taste. And it wasn't necessarily because I was like let's go, like I was like so like sexually adventurous or putting it out there or anything. I wasn't. It was almost more just like, I know I'm not supposed to see this, and I know I'm not supposed to, I also know I'm not supposed to like this or have any sort of like interest, but I do. And so I'm going, it would be like, I would imagine it would be like if I had a much more dangerous version would be like if I like had a sip of beer, like the way sometimes people who are alcoholics or addicts of some kind will say like, I knew from the first time I drank any alcohol that like this was going to be a problem. Like that they like immediately were just like, this is bad, but I have to keep doing it. Like I like it so much and I'm going to keep doing it. I don't think I would seek it out, but like if I found it, I was definitely like, okay.
Interesting. And who wouldn't be at that age? Who wouldn't be? And then I wanted to talk about that horror movie thing. I think that age, it was like a rite of passage. Right, to go to a sleepover, and then there would be a scary movie, and can you handle it? Can you handle the scary movie? Which is, I think, what those things were. Those horror movies. I didn't watch a lot of them back in the day, but it just seemed like it was
Did not
something
like
like
'em.
challenge yourself to. Can you handle this? Can you hang with us? By watching this,
it was a lot that, and there was like a lot of gross. There was just like I remember my those same friends that we watched Saturday Night Fever with, they had the Queen album that had like a giant sort of robot on it with like dead bodies on the fingers kind of thing. Like it had like
it's the We Are the Champions album,
Yes.
or I think is what it is.
and like that stayed in my brain. Like I still can picture it perfectly. And it freaked me, like blood was dripping down. Like it was just so graphic and like horrifying.
Yeah.
And there's like a specific fear if you're afraid of like large things. It's like colossophobia. That's not it. But it's like if you're afraid of things that are like outsized, that's like a thing.
Because it was that
and
giant.
I think I have it.
Yeah.
It was like a giant robot type thing. And that was just a thing to me of like that in that time, horror was just this thing that like permeated all, you know, a thing I would think was safe, like music. It's like, oh God, there's like horrible crap.
So for Gen X!
Hello.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
I'm all right. Thanks so much for having me.
I think some people at your age might call themselves Xennials. There are people who
Ooh.
try to like fit in the like.
I don't
they
like
try
those
to wedge
people.
wedge into Gen X.
Not because I disagree
Yeah.
with the sentiment, but because who cares?
Yeah. Why are
they're
you so caught up in it?
Yeah.
Scott is a friend of ours who we used to perform with in New York City with the widely acclaimed improv group Big Black Car. Scott lives in Los Angeles now with his wife and his two kids. And Scott's a writer. Scott's an amazingly great writer, in my opinion.
Mine too.
He's a very, very funny guy, not to try to, give you an unfair intro to live up to, but very funny guy and also very, very intelligent guy.
He went to
and
Princeton.
He did.
Oh. Wow.
If we were to plug anything, maybe your podcast with Ellie Kemper, which is called what?
Born to Love. Born to
Born
Love
to
with
Love.
Ellie Kemper and Scott Eckert, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna write
so we
that
could
down.
put a link. We could put a link to however these things work.
And you are going to see your listenership just probably
it's gonna
level
skyrocket.
out. It might level
Yeah.
out. It might actually go down a little bit. I'm not really sure who's.
In Minnesota, were there, because I have heard lots of people talk about, like, oh yeah, you would randomly find nudie mags in the woods. Would you ever find nudie mags in the woods, Scott?
Shinders. That was they sold baseball cards, like comic books, and then a special room for the nudie mags. So,
But you wouldn't find any in the woods, like people had stashed away in the woods?
Would you put them in the woods as a place
maybe
to
you're the guy.
hide them?
Maybe you're the guy hiding
I'm
them.
trying to. Well, it's funny because I'm well aware of that convention, like maybe from movies or something. I'm trying to remember if that ever happened to me. I would say not in the woods. I'm trying to remember now. I do think that there was one nudie mag that my friends got a hold of, and I think they did find it by the railroad tracks. There were railroad tracks near my house, so
That sounds right.
that's
Yep.
probably the closest
Checks
That
that we
sounds right.
came. Was yeah.
Some hobo was like, where's my nudie mag? Damn kids took my nudie mag.
It fell off the train, and he woke up,
Yeah.
in Cincinnati, furious that it was gone. His only possession in life.
And my,
That
and my
and
knapsack.
His bindle.
Oh, is that what that is with
let
the
me light
stick
this can.
and the thing in the back? The handkerchief?
I think that's what it is
Yeah.
called. I can guarantee you they don't
Bindle,
know
yeah.
that.
They used
Nah.
to call people like hobos. They called them
Yeah.
bindle stiffs
Yeah.
because they would have their little bindle and they would walk around with it. They were bindle stiff.
Anybody who ever went to Halloween as a hobo knows all this stuff.
Sorry.
Put coffee grounds with Vaseline on your face.
Ooh.
With stuff.
I did
I don't
get
think you can get away with that these days. The coffee grounds on your face.
Well, no, because it doesn't
Yeah.
make you
The grounds. The grounds.
It
It's
just
It
looks
gives
like
you
like
a
stubble.
5
Stubble.
o'clock shadow as a kid.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. That's good.
Wow, Scott, you really went there.
Scott, was there anything in your life when you were growing up that you just loved, but maybe you were either too embarrassed to say that you loved it, and so then now here we are, and you're going to reveal that thing?
So yes. I may be a little bit older than yours. I hope I'm not too old. But in the very beginning, I remember it was the winter, like I would say January, February of 1998. So I was 16. I recently got my driver's license, and I had only ever been to movies with other people, with my parents or ride my bike with my friends. And there was one movie that I was desperate to see that I could not convince anyone to go with me. And it was the first movie that I saw entirely by myself. It was a big movie. I'm sure that all of you have seen it. It was called Titanic. So I saw the film Titanic completely alone, which lands real funny when you're 16. You can't get a date to Titanic.
Yeah.
And then I followed it up just weeks later. I think after the Oscar nominations or something, I saw the second movie that I've ever seen by myself, which was Shakespeare in Love. So 16-year-old Scott couldn't get a date, and saw what were then, in my mind, the most romantic movies ever made. Still really in the pantheon of romantic movies.
Yes. Yeah.
Completely alone at the Harmar Cinemas in Roseville, Minnesota. Yeah, so either or both of those counts. I didn't go bragging to my friends that I loved those movies, partly because it was shameful to love them, and partly because it's especially shameful to go alone.
Because the next question would have been like, well, who'd you go with? And
Exactly.
you would have had
no
to say,
doubt.
no
right?
one.
Like
I took myself on a date.
yeah. Did you go with Jessica Jevajinsky? No, I didn't.
No.
I wish.
If only. I see. Yeah, was there anybody else in the movie theater?
You can't put the romantic movie mask on someone else until you put your own on.
What?
You got to take care of yourself first. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
That's
Right.
right. The theaters were, both to answer your question, Matt, they were packed. They were. I don't know if
Yeah.
you remember, but
I
they
do.
were both. They were very popular movies, right?
Yeah, they were big films. I just thought maybe you went at an off time. You know.
I don't remember what time I went, but I do remember. I remember being to this day, 20 years later, more than that. Obviously, very self-conscious about the whole thing. So I think I just remember noticing that everyone else seemed to be there with someone else. That they were there with someone they loved, and here
there were some older dudes there alone, and like hoping there'd be some singleton gals there.
Those older dudes were watching that movie and then going out into the woods where their stack of nudie mags were hidden.
Yeah.
And just wishing that they had a date.
Oh.
Did you see either or both of those films in the theater? I mean, I feel like theater going has changed so much.
I didn't,
since then.
weirdly.
I don't think I saw Titanic in the theater. I don't think I've ever seen Shakespeare in Love.
I haven't either.
I think I saw both of those in a movie theater with a date. No, probably
right. Yeah,
probably my
got
wife.
Lucky afterwards. You probably kissed.
Yeah, well,
you did all the things
if you're saying it was
cool
1998, it was probably my wife. I went with her. So that would have made sense.
Very cool.
I will say this. I mean, I think we're focused on when we're younger, but to this day, I enjoy rom-coms. I like a good Jennifer Aniston rom-com. That is like not cool. Right, but I will say
I think it's cool to a lot of people. Just you don't happen to be married to one of the people that thinks it's cool.
It's not cool to her.
Yeah, don't tell Ashley that you're
I don't
doing
think
that.
my guy friends aren't like, oh man, you see that last Jennifer Aniston rom com? That was
Yeah, you're not sitting around playing poker, talking about the.
Right.
No, you're not. No.
No, I mean, I know what you're saying. I'm not sure that I'm familiar with Jennifer Aniston rom-coms, but something that happens
you got
to me.
to check it out.
This happens to me almost every time I find myself in a hotel. I don't have cable, guys. I cut the cord. It's a cool thing that young people like me do.
But you're
we don't understand that.
Right.
It's been on streaming. I haven't had cable for, I don't know, a decade or more. But when I'm in a hotel...
I don't even have a TV in my house. I blew my
anybody
own
who brags
beer,
about not having a TV is a jerk. But people who brag about not having cable are really cool. And I'm one of the cool ones. But I find myself in a hotel, and it's like, I enjoy sort of channel surfing, and it's happened to me more than once. I land on a J-Lo rom-com.
A lot of those.
Like Made in Manhattan. They seem to be always on.
Yep.
And it takes about 2 minutes before I remember again why Jennifer Lopez is one of the biggest stars in the world. She's everything about her's fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to see her fall in love.
Yeah.
And she does.
I mean, in every movie
swear,
that she's in. Yeah.
You two are like, y'all are taking baby steps towards being a Lifetime holiday movie, guys. You're real close. In fairness, Made in Manhattan had J-Lo and Ralph Fiennes, one of the finest actors of his generation.
Yeah.
Yes,
Not
and
intended.
his brother Joseph Fiennes.
Joseph Fiennes was in Shakespeare in Love.
In Shakespeare in Love, so it comes, full circle. Life's a Herald, guys. But
It really does.
And
I saw. I saw, not to bring it back to Titanic, but I do love it, and since I'm coming out on this podcast, it would be a shame not to touch on it once more.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen it recently? Because it landed hard for me when I first saw it, and then I didn't see it. Again, I don't think until last year. In the lead up to Avatar 2, I decided, you know what? I should check out Titanic. And I rewatched it, and it landed very differently. Have any of you seen Titanic recently?
Not recently.
I'll be honest, I've never seen Titanic in its entirety. I've seen parts of
Who
Titanic.
has that much time?
I've
It is
seen
long.
the musical Titanic.
It is
I've
a
seen
musical?
some documentary. Yeah, Mari Yeston musical Titanic.
Is it based on the James Cameron film Titanic, or is it based on
It
the
is
human
not.
tragedy? The sinking.
It is based on. I think it was maybe based on a book. Mari Yeston, who is the guy who wrote it, who like sort of writes a little bit more heavy musicals that are not as like there were no hummable tunes really in the show, but it was focused a lot on the architect of the ship and the captain. That was like a big part of the story, was like the architect of the ship not understanding how this could happen.
That was on Broadway, wasn't it? I think it was on Broadway.
Yeah. Victor Garber, Michael Cerveris. That's all I remember. It was in it, but I did see it on the Broadway.
Titanic
I have not seen it in
landed
years.
with me when I first saw it. I did not. It didn't land that. It didn't make much of an impact on me.
I can't imagine anyone loving it more than a 16-year-old girl other than a 16-year-old boy.
Well,
Those are the two people who I would think it would hit the hardest.
I think it was when I saw it, when I remember seeing it, it was like filled with a lot of emotion. It was like also this kind of effects film, like a big effect film. Like the whole back half of the movie is like the whole sinking of the ship, and it's very it's just cool to watch.
This is what I will say about it. I hate when in movies or in TV shows or whatever, books, when somebody takes a priceless piece of jewelry and throws it in the ocean, like, or anything, like burns the money, or even if they flush the cocaine. Like, no, that's worth a lot of money. You do not do that. You can do good in the world with that kind of money. Do the good
with
thing.
that kind of
Sell
cocaine.
the cocaine and give the money to charity.
I mean, you've already got the cocaine.
So wait, Scott, I want to know what. So tell me how you felt about it at 16 versus how you felt about it pre-Avatar 2.
Well, 16, I think I felt the same way that America did, which is that it was the greatest romance ever told. And like
Not
you said,
Matt,
it's a disaster film at the end, the spectacle of the ship breaking in half and all that. So I was transported. In 2023, which is when I saw it last, it's not a bad movie, but it is very unusual, but in part because if you remember, there's a frame story with the old lady, right? And as you said, Nate, she throws the big giant diamond in the sea at the end, which I guess is like her letting go of the death of Leonardo DiCaprio all those years ago.
Yeah.
The thing that's strange is that Bill Paxton plays a deep sea diver submarine guy who is hunting for that diamond. And I only remembered that as like an interesting frame story where the old lady goes to where the ship sank, right? Yeah. It turns out that there's like a whole lot of plot about greedy Bill Paxton trying to find the diamond. And you don't get to like, you genuinely do not go back in time to the time of the Titanic, and Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio do not show up on screen for like 25 minutes or something. It's wild. And Bill Paxton's not playing like a charming rogue, at least not in my view. He's not a guy, he's not a villain, but he's not something I'm rooting for. It's like, why the hell am I watching this Bill Paxton treasure hunter?
Dude, I liked you a lot
robot
more.
Operating his submarines.
I liked you a lot more when you were chasing tornadoes.
Exactly.
I don't even remember the whole thing about when you said the necklace, Nate. I was like, oh yeah, there was a necklace, and there was a romance, and
I think it was
didn't remember
with movies around that time period, because I think around them was The Bridges of Madison County, which had a framing device of the children finding their mother's diaries, and that's how the story
they
is.
Threw it into the
even like Schindler's List, where they had the framework of the people coming,
and the whole time with the framework,
little
I'm
addendums, and
I'm like, just trash the framework. The story is the story. Like the frame is trash. Like it's like
we need to know how we get in. We got to get
Michael's black lacquer frame. Like it's like we don't need it.
There's another famous frame story from that exact time, and I think the year later, is Saving Private Ryan, obviously the World War II war story, and then you see the old man visiting Normandy. And the thing is, I will go to bat for that one, because it at first you think the old man is Tom Hanks. They're setting you up to believe that.
Yeah.
But then, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Saving Private Ryan, guys, Tom Hanks dies, and the old man turns out to be Matt Damon.
Yeah.
And what I still find profoundly moving to this day is that Matt Damon, when it cuts to the end and you realize, oh shit, this is Matt Damon as an old man, his sort of emotional struggle is that he, at the end of his life, is not worth... Excuse me. Can I pause for 1 second? My daughter's iPad is ringing. Give me 1 second.
You better get that.
He's right. That Matt Damon framing is not the worst.
Sorry, guys. I silenced my phone because I'm not a monster, but I didn't think to silence my daughter's iPad. It was she was getting a call from someone named Cece, and it was annotated bestie. So
that
Cece,
seems
her
important.
bestie, I will tell you as her father, no idea who Cece is.
Clearly her bestie is
worries
what
me a little bit.
When I think CC, I think Music Factory. That's all I know.
Either
There's two C's.
Yeah.
Either I'm a bad parent and I'm really disconnected from my daughter's life, or she's pretty loose with that term, bestie.
Well, maybe Cece put her own number in there and put bestie.
Maybe she wants
herself.
to be everybody's bestie.
Oh, that's Cece's a little bestie whore.
Yeah.
And I probably shouldn't be saying that about an 11-year-old girl. Anyway, I want to say this because it means deeply meaningful to me. Matt Damon, at the end of that movie, he's so sad because he doesn't feel like he was worth the sacrifice of men like
All of them.
Tom Hanks. But it's important to the story because, guys, we are Matt Damon. All those people and their sacrifice, we didn't deserve. We deserve it?
Tom
And then his like doofball son is like, you were a good dad, or something like that. And it's like, yeah, okay, all right, there we go. That's all we can. I think try to be good people.
I think you're right that was a good. Yeah, that's a good.
I
bit.
shouldn't have booed it,
but it does come at a time when League of Their Own, like you can't do a movie without that all of a sudden, and it's like it got a little bit annoying.
Well,
that one, you're right, is a good frame.
In Schindler's List, wasn't it only at the very end? It was like a coda, like a little moment where you're like,
yeah.
And that probably was a decent.
It's not the worst.
That one was probably decent too, but it's just like
just like a typical.
That device gets old.
Yeah.
Spielberg's got to get his manipulations in, and he's gonna find the spots to like He's like, oh, you haven't cried yet? Guess what? You're crying now. Like he's gonna do it. It's gonna happen. Love him.
Temple of Doom.
Exactly.
Crying
Just
like
wait
a
till
baby.
that heart pops out. You're gonna be crying in the aisles.
AI was the movie that I was like, oh, Steven Spielberg is an emotional manipulator, and he just wants to make me cry.
That's his job, though. Isn't
I know it is. I'm not mad.
Part of his job.
And then, ironically, he made the movie about his life, and it wasn't that good. And it was because you can't. He doesn't have the capacity to distance himself in a way to make it a great story. I think. I think he can do that with stories that are not his.
Well, I have a slightly different take on that, which
let's
is it's just not that tremendously interesting. Like he's a filmmaker operating at peak performance.
Yeah.
It just turns out that his childhood, like his parents got divorced. That sucks. Like his mom ended up with
alien.
But here's
exactly. Where's the giant boulders, Steve?
Yeah. Well, he had to. That's where he created them in his imagination.
But
later,
here's the thing.
Much later.
Imagine it wasn't his story. Imagine it was a book that someone wrote about the sort of travails of growing up, and like this mom who was like clearly had some like mental health issues, that, you know, some acting out, some things that like fractured the family and that caused a way of seeing the world. Like you can imagine that novel, right? Like that's a novel that could exist in the world and people would read it and think it was great. And Steven Spielberg could take that novel and make it into an incredible film. I think he couldn't do it with this because it was his story. And so the things that he saw as important were important in a close-up way. He didn't have an eagle-eyed view to be able to really see the import.
Why do you say he could make that movie? What other movie has he ever made that is similar, that doesn't have Nazis or aliens or slavery or World War II? You know, like what?
Color Purple.
It has slaves.
There's no slavery in Color Purple.
I haven't seen Color Purple in a while, but they were.
You just saw it at Christmas, the musical.
It was post-slavery, whatever. They were still. It was about racism, and like it wasn't just.
I mean, that is a part of the story. The main part of the story is the emotional journey of this woman. I would say it's more about sexism almost than racism in a lot of ways, because it really is the heart of the story is this woman who is repeatedly abused. This is not a movie podcast.
Guys,
I was going to say one of the things that I really loved, but I'm afraid to say, was The Fabelmans.
Oh, the one I just trashed?
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, what if it was? What if I did like it? No, I totally understand what you're saying there, because I wish I was trying to think of like another movie of his where he might have taken some. Well, didn't he do Catch Me If You Can? Did you catch Me If You Can? There's not like a lot of magic in that, but that's like a story, and it's like big. It's like larger than life in a lot of ways, because the characters are larger than life. And in Fabelmans, I only saw it once, but I like sort of remember like they're just they're just people. They're just
James Brooks
people
could have directed The Fabelmans and made it a better movie.
Yes, James Brooks does those kinds of movies.
But
Yeah, I think,
Spielberg did the Post. He did.
But those are big events. I mean, I think we're all
they are
saying we
big
all
events.
agree.
Yeah,
I think
they're big.
I think Fabelmans is not a bad movie. It's just that I don't think that the flaws with the Fabelmans are that he was too close to the material. It's just that
He
it's
does
such
not
a
do small
small
world movies.
Yeah, it's a small
Maybe that's it.
domestic
It's smaller.
movie. And
Conversely,
yeah.
if someone else were to do a movie about Steven Spielberg's childhood, that would be probably a much more interesting movie.
It may
than
be.
the Fabelmans. Because
I wonder
it
if
would
it's
have
like-
the context of this person would grow up to be the greatest director of all time, and he would be portrayed in a way that it'd be more like your
And I wonder if
typical biopics.
maybe he withheld that or didn't want to do that because he
Yeah.
didn't want to feel like, or present this like a false
What a
version
narcissistic
of
thing to
himself.
do.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Nah,
I
don't know.
don't know. I
what
still
it needed
think
was
I'm
a frame story, is what you're saying. We need old Steven Spielberg.
That's what you need at the beginning
end.
and at the
Yeah,
end.
we need him.
At
He was
the
about
end,
to
you go-
accept his Oscar, and then did whatever. He was inspired by the bully who made him make movies.
Or
some
we
shit.
needed to.
At the end, the camera turns around and we see Steven Spielberg peek out from behind another camera and go. And that's fade to black.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Or if
That would have been great.
periodically in the movie, it'd be like, we'd see this little encounter with an alien and little things that this is where all the inspiration for these other movies came
Right.
from. What's the movie with the
Jaws?
gecko?
Is it Jaws? Were you thinking of Jaws?
Dangerous Mind?
No, the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in India?
Slumdog Millionaire.
Slumdog Millionaire. Right? Where we learn how he knew all the
Yeah.
answers. We learn why Steven Spielberg made all those movies.
Oh, also though, the movie Always is a movie that he made that does have a
Okay.
supernatural element.
It does.
It's also one of his lesser movies, but is a lot about grief, romance, relationships. The ghosty part is a part of it certainly, but you're right, he doesn't handle the
except for the ghost.
humanity.
Regular life.
It's a
weird.
regularly.
No, but I think you're right.
Huh.
Actually, that is the closest thing I could think of to where it's not
Always.
that big of a world.
Always.
But there's a ghost.
There is a ghost in a ghost world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we've really
Audrey
covered some
Hepburn's
ground
last
here.
Yeah.
Movie.
Thank you, Scott, so much for sharing with
For
us.
turning us into a movie podcast, which
Which I
now
love.
I'm kind of obsessed
Now maybe
with.
we should.
Now I
sounds
want to
like
do
a-
a movie podcast
maybe we
where we
should
just
do that.
just dissect our opinions on
But
various
the
movies.
ground rule should be is we cannot watch the movie. If we've watched it in the past, that's the only context we can come into the podcast with.
Right.
So who knows?
Like a 20-year distance.
It's a podcast about
Yeah.
the time we saw a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but many
Listen,
years
Louis.
ago, nothing
Oh, yeah.
recent.
Many
Let's
years.
talk about sliding doors.
My God.
Well, yeah.
A movie
Yeah.
I saw 20 plus years.
Did you guys see that third Pirates of the Caribbean movie? I don't know. Came out before
Is that the Dead
2010.
Man's Chest one, or
Which
is that
one?
a different one?
Yeah, it was
Curse of the thing.
My mom made me go see Sex in the City with her.
I was
And
there,
the
too.
I was the only boy in the theater.
I was
movie-
there too, and I had to sit by his
The
mom.
movie in the theater. Let me ask you this, Scott, before we let you live your life. How would you deal when you were a kid or into high school? How would you deal with those things that you were into or you liked a lot or loved even that maybe weren't that cool? Were you secretive about those things? Did you not give a crap what other kids thought? Do you not have anything like that?
It's funny you asked that, Nate, because I had plenty of young adolescent passions that I should have been ashamed of and was not. So chief among them was Star Trek. So I was like a really huge Star Trek fan, and I loved the originals. I loved The Next Generation. I went to Star Trek conventions. I threw a Star Trek themed birthday party in middle school, and I was the only kid in my entire small middle school, high school that cared at all about Star Trek. So no, I never hid my passions, but they were never shared. I never had, and still to this day, don't really have any personal friend. Nate and Ashley, you and we're all close friends. Like, I don't know. I think I've probably arm twisted you into seeing like Mission Impossible 6 or something. And everyone that I arm twist into seeing those movies is like, well, I didn't like that movie very much.
Scott, you would not have to twist my arm to see a Mission Impossible movie. I think they're great.
Because I remember your son Jack playing a Star Trek card game you had gotten him.
Star Trek, the customizable card game. It's a good sort of touch point and actually relates to nudie mags.
Oh.
So Star Trek, the customizable card game, you buy packs of cards like baseball cards, and you use those cards to play a game. And the more packs you bought, the likelihood that you would get a powerful, rare card like Captain Picard or Worf or Data go up, right? Just in the same way you buy baseball cards, you want to get Derek Jeter or whomever, right?
Yeah.
And I bought so many. I bought hundreds of packs of Star Trek the customizable card game cards. The problem was there was no one to play with. I browbeat my best friend into playing with me. So I've only ever played Star Trek the customizable card game with that one guy whom I forced to play with me. And the only place to get the cards was the nudie mag place, Schindler's. And flash forward to I'm a father of young children, and I discover you can buy them on eBay. And I've now played with 3 people. I've played with my old friend and my 2 children, and I have all the great cards, guys.
Yeah,
I've ponied up.
You did.
I got Captain Picard. I got the Enterprise. I got Dr. Crusher. So it all worked out in the end.
Vanessa won't play with you?
Vanessa will not play. No, she will not play.
I'm not hearing any of the original series characters named.
Well, it's actually Star Trek: The Next Generation, the customizable card game. Yeah,
we're not being specific. I'm sorry.
Original. I love the original,
all right.
but it came out contemporaneously with the Next Generation.
Okay,
so
all right.
They made the game as the show was.
Yeah, we only had the original series when we were growing up, pretty much. Right?
For the record, I love the Mission Impossible movie that we went and saw together. I thought that was a great movie. It was the best of those movies, too, by the way.
Which one was
that? We
that?
saw together at the ArcLight.
Ghost Protocol?
No, don't be a fool.
Was it
Mission Impossible Fallout number 6?
Yeah. Fallout.
Oberg, I think.
Fallout.
Yes.
Maybe someone else. And also, you nerded us into watching Game of Thrones for the first time, which is a whole nother interesting story.
No, that was Chris Grace.
I thought it was the 2 of you.
It was Chris Grace, and Scott really did put up a little bit of a resistance.
Well, only because of the timing of it.
Because Chris tried to... The way we started watching Game of Thrones briefly is Chris Grace's partner died. We went to his house the day his partner died. We were like, what do you want to do? And he's like, have y'all seen The Red Wedding from Game of Thrones? We had never watched Game of Thrones. And Scott was like, whoa, I don't know, man.
Jump in there? That's a hard place to jump in.
And we're like, well, we don't care. We'll watch it if that's what you want to do. And Scott was like, okay. Because you had seen it, right? You had seen Game of Thrones and you had seen that episode.
I hadn't seen that episode, but I had read the books and was well aware of what happened.
Oh, so we were
just
all...
given the context.
So the 3 of us were all like... we told this to some people the other day, and they were like, that's illegal. You can't make people who have never seen Game of Thrones start at the Red Wedding.
Well, it was
but
so
we did,
weird
and then we started watching the whole show.
It's Ptolemy that we told about it, and it was so weird to me that Ptolemy was not as weirded out about the context in which we first watched that movie.
Yeah,
show,
he was more
as
upset.
he was that it was a spoiler episode to introduce us to the series.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, Scott. Sorry if we kept you too long.
Sorry we turned it into a movie podcast.
Oh, I love it. Anytime. It was wonderful to be with both of you and you, Matt.
And I was here also.
I don't know. The thing is, guys, it's the 2 of them they're next to each other on the same screen.
Oh my God, I know.
Anyway,
no,
thank
that's okay.
you so much.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate
Scott.
it.
You're the best.
It really was great chatting with you.
All right. And
let's see if he can. Did he figure it out? Yay, he did figure it out.
He's smart. He's a millennial.
He's a millennial from 1981.
Wow, I really did try to make this a movie podcast.
You did a good job. I think it was.
Pivoted.
It was a good job. You did. You did well. I mean, we covered a lot of ground about movies in this one unexpectedly.
I might, I can edit a lot of that.
Yeah. You can or either enhance it or take away. I don't know.
Maybe I'll edit the first part.
Edit that into the beginning of a new movie podcast.
And I'll just re-record my intro. Movies are great. Here's why.
But keep the title the same. That thing that I loved, but don't mention.
Let's draw for next time.
All right. Do you want to pick one? Wait, who's going next time?
I don't know. I was probably not a fashion icon. Or did I just pick? No, I just hosted, so it's one of you.
It's probably not a fashion icon.
That's a good
Probably
one.
not a fashion icon. So basically just talking about how unfashionable we were.
Yeah.
So I think this is me because you did Looking Glass, right?
Yes, I did Looking Glass. So Matt, I was probably not a fashion icon.
Yeah, that sounds right. Okay. Probably not a fashion icon. Coming up next time on Solve for Gen X, the movie podcast for Generation X's and Millennials. Special thanks to Scott Eckert for being on the show today.
Solve for Gen X is mixed and edited by Nate Starkey.
The theme song was written by Nate Starkey and Matt Vogel and performed by the Mighty Weekly.
Our podcast art was created by Dave Hulteen at davehulteendesign.com.
You can find Solve for Gen X wherever you listen to podcasts.
And it's also available to watch on YouTube.
Just search Solve for Gen X.
If you're so inclined, please rate and review our show. It really helps our visibility.
Or whatever.
Whatever.
Solve for Gen X is a Welcome Matt and Married Nate and Ashley production.